Picture this. You open your mailbox and there's an official envelope from your state's Department of Human Services. Your hands are shaking as you tear it open, and the words on the page make your stomach drop. New work requirements for SNAP benefits begin September 1st. This isn't just another bureaucratic letter. This is a potential game changer for millions of American families who depend on food assistance to put meals on their tables. If you're one of the 41 million Americans currently receiving SNAP benefits, also known as food stamps, you need to pay attention right now because what I'm about to tell you could directly impact whether you'll still have access to food assistance after September 30th. Before we dive deep into what these changes mean for you and your family, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell because this information is too important to miss, and I'll be covering every update as this situation develops. Your financial security and your family's next meal might depend on staying informed about these rapidly changing policies. The reality hitting American households right now is both shocking and deeply concerning. New federal legislation has established that individuals under 55 years of age who do not have dependent children must demonstrate a minimum of 20 hours per week of employment-related activities. This isn't just a minor policy adjustment. It's a fundamental shift that will determine whether millions of Americans can continue to access the nutrition assistance they desperately need to survive. But here's where it gets even more complicated, and this is something that many people don't fully understand yet. More people will need to work or volunteer at least 20 hours per week, or participate in training programs to keep their benefits. And many people who were previously exempt from work requirements will now have to show they meet them or risk losing their SNAP benefits. Think about what this means for a moment. We're talking about single adults, veterans returning from service, people caring for elderly relatives, individuals dealing with chronic health conditions, and countless others who are suddenly finding themselves caught in a web of new bureaucratic requirements. The human cost of these changes cannot be overstated. Imagine you're a 50-year-old construction worker who got injured on the job and is struggling to find work that accommodates your physical limitations. Under the old system, you might have qualified for food assistance while you figured out your next steps. Now, you're facing the very real possibility of having your benefits cut off entirely if you can't prove you're working or volunteering 20 hours every single week. The stress isn't just about filling out paperwork. It's about wondering where your next meal will come from. What makes this situation even more challenging is the timing and the scope of these changes. Individuals must complete at least 80 hours per month of work, job training, or approved community service to continue receiving benefits. And failure to meet these criteria could result in a time-limited benefit window, typically 3 months within a 3-year period. Let me break that down for you because the math here is crucial. 80 hours per month means you need to be engaged in qualifying activities for more than 20 hours every single week without exception. Miss a week because you're sick, because you can't find childcare, or because your transportation falls through, and you're immediately at risk of losing benefits that might be the only thing standing between your family and hunger. The ripple effects of these policy changes extend far beyond individual households. Food banks across the country are already bracing for an influx of new clients as people lose their SNAP benefits. Local grocery stores in low-income neighborhoods are preparing for decreased sales as purchasing power in their communities diminish. Healthcare systems are anticipating increases in nutrition-related health problems as food insecurity rises. This isn't just a policy change. It's a fundamental restructuring of how America addresses hunger and poverty. But what's particularly troubling about these new requirements is how they fail to account for the complex realities of poverty and unemployment in modern America. Older adults and veterans who may face unique challenges in the job market will now also have to meet the same expectations as younger participants. Consider the 55-year-old veteran dealing with PTSD who struggles to maintain consistent employment, or the single mother whose work schedule fluctuates based on retail demands. These aren't people gaming the system. These are Americans facing genuine hardships who now find themselves navigating an increasingly punitive bureaucracy just to access basic nutrition assistance. The notification letters that millions of Americans have been receiving aren't just administrative updates, they're life-changing documents that require immediate action. SNAP recipients now must meet work requirements and report that they are meeting the requirement to state departments of human services. And if recipients are not meeting this requirement, they will be limited to 3 months of SNAP benefits for a 3-year period. This means that failure to comply doesn't just result in a temporary suspension, it creates a 3-year ban that could leave families without food assistance for an extended period. The documentation and reporting requirements alone present significant barriers for many recipients. People need to not only meet the 20-hour weekly requirement, but also prove that they're meeting it through acceptable documentation. This might sound simple, but consider the challenges faced by someone working odd jobs for cash, volunteering for a small community organization that doesn't have sophisticated record-keeping systems, or participating in job training programs that don't provide the specific documentation formats required by state agencies. The administrative burden of proving compliance can be overwhelming, particularly for people who are already struggling with poverty, limited education, or language barriers. What's especially concerning is how these changes disproportionately impact certain communities. Rural Americans often face limited job opportunities and may need to travel significant distances for work or training programs. Urban Americans in food deserts might struggle to access both employment opportunities and the resources needed to document their compliance. Communities of color, who are already disproportionately affected by poverty and food insecurity, face additional barriers in navigating these new requirements while dealing with systemic inequalities in employment and education. The economic argument behind these policy changes centers on the idea that work requirements will move people from dependency to self-sufficiency. Proponents argue that requiring able-bodied adults to work or participate in training will help them develop skills and find sustainable employment. However, this perspective often overlooks the complex barriers that many SNAP recipients face, including lack of transportation, limited childcare options, insufficient educational background, criminal records that make employment difficult to obtain, and health issues that may not qualify for disability but still impact work capacity. Research on previous implementations of similar work requirements provides important context for understanding the likely outcomes of these changes. Studies from states that have implemented work requirements for SNAP and Medicaid have consistently shown that while some people do find employment, many others simply lose benefits without gaining sustainable work. The result is often increased food insecurity and health problems without corresponding improvements in long-term economic outcomes. For families currently receiving SNAP benefits, understanding your options and rights under these new requirements is absolutely critical. SNAP recipients who work and earn more than $217.50 per week before taxes are exempt from the requirements, and everyone else must submit documentation proving they work or volunteer at least 20 hours a week or that they have a qualifying exemption. This means that if you're already working and earning above this threshold, you may not need to worry about additional documentation requirements. However, if you're working but earning less than this amount, or if you're currently unemployed, you need to understand exactly what qualifies as acceptable work or training activities. The exemption categories are crucial to understand because they may apply to more people than initially realized. Exemptions typically include individuals who are physically or mentally unable to work, those caring for young children or disabled family members, students enrolled in school at least half-time, and people receiving unemployment benefits. However, the process for claiming these exemptions often requires specific documentation and may need to be renewed periodically. If you're facing the possibility of losing your SNAP benefits, there are steps you can take right now to protect your access to food assistance. First, contact your local SNAP office immediately to understand exactly what documentation you need to provide and when it's due. Don't wait until the last minute. These offices are dealing with massive increases in inquiries, and getting the help you need may take time. Second, explore all possible exemptions that might apply to your situation. Sometimes people assume they don't qualify for exemptions when they actually do. Third, look into local job training programs, volunteer opportunities, or part-time work that could help you meet the requirements while also potentially improving your long-term employment prospects. Community organizations, food banks, and advocacy groups across the country are working to help people navigate these changes. Many are offering assistance with paperwork, helping people understand their rights, and connecting individuals with qualifying work or volunteer opportunities. Don't hesitate to reach out for help. These organizations exist specifically to support people facing these kinds of challenges. The broader implications of these SNAP changes extend beyond immediate food access to fundamental questions about how America addresses poverty and supports vulnerable populations. When we make it harder for people to access nutrition assistance, we're not just affecting individual families. We're impacting children's ability to learn and develop, workers' ability to maintain their health and productivity, and communities' overall economic stability.